topic for today. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. Are you listening today? If you want to follow, I'll be going to 1 Samuel chapter 3. We're reading verses 2 through 10. I will be reading from the NLT version because, as I told you, God has been doing a very personal thing in my life. And sometimes not taking anything away from the King James Version because it's beautiful. But we need to see it in different texts to get a little bit different understanding. And God allowed me to come to you all in that version today. And it says, one night Eli, who was almost blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. Suddenly the Lord called out, Samuel. Yes, Samuel replied. What is it? He got up and ran to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, Eli replied. Go back to bed. So he did. Then the Lord called out again, Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? I didn't call you, my son, Eli said. Go back to bed. Samuel did not yet know the Lord because he had never had a message from the Lord before. So the Lord called a third time. And once more, Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Did you call me? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, go, lie down. And if someone calls again, say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed, and the Lord came back and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, speak, your servant is listening. Do you know God speaks to you? I have 3 points today and a bonus. First point, get close to him. If you notice in the scripture, Samuel was sleeping in the presence of God. He was right there by him. He was in a holy place. We have it on the inside of us. We are at a place now in the times where we can get close to God with no boundaries. The only thing that's getting in your way is you. So get close to him. Second point, he desires to give you an understanding. Third point, don't overcomplicate it. We have a tendency to do that. God desires to commune with us. As we know, if you read through this, Samuel was close to God. He hadn't yet learned the voice of God. He went to the man's voice that he knew. He went to Eli because he wasn't yet familiar with the Lord's voice. What are you familiar with in this season that you've become familiar with that you need to lay down? God is doing something new today. In this harvest time, he's calling you, and he's calling you by name because there's purpose in you. And if he can't get to you, how is he going to get down to that purpose that he's pulling out of you? So we have to remember in this season, as he draws closer to us, we are to draw closer to him because that's what he desires. He desires relationship with us. We get caught up in what the pastor says to us, and we honor the man and woman of this house because we sit under good people. We sit under people who God has anointed that go without scandal, that go without people posting stuff online. We can look online at some pastors today and see some stuff. My God. A lot of it you don't want to Google. But God put us under a good man and woman of God. But he also desires, yes, that's a perfect place for applause. He also desires us to have relationship with him. Yes. He desires for relationship with him. Where is your relationship with him today? Where is your relationship with him? Because he's calling out to you. Are you familiar with his voice? My sheep know my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. Do you know the voice of God? Do you know when he's directing you not to do something and when to do something? As I've grown over the years, I've had many voices. God's voice has always been there. And if we're not still enough, we'll move. But God is that still voice. But when we commune, when we sit in his presence, where he wants you to be, you get to intune your ear to him and his voice. Too many of us today are running left, we're running right, we're on these crooked paths because our ears aren't tuned to the voice of God. When we move to his voice, a lot of us are looking for things. And he's saying, I have the answer right here. But if we're not communing with him, if we're not following him, if we're not reading his word, if we're not laying at his feet, then he can't give us what we need in this season. He desires to give you an understanding. Confusion is of the devil. This world is so confused. But everything you need is in this word here. And as we fine-tune our ear and get an understanding of what he or who he is and what he desires for us, we move in a direction where he can get the glory. And things will work out. And it's not just for you, because we're here to serve. We're here to open up things for other people. We're here to minister to the people. Too many times we leave people behind when we're supposed to be taking them with us. But because we aren't doing what's right, because our ears are being tricked, and we have a duty to uphold in this season. Because whether we believe it or not, we've heard over the years, you're living in the last and evil days. This is coming, this is coming. If you know God, if you know his word, you can look outside and see some things are coming to pass. That's why I say damage the ignorance today. The ignorance has to be damaged. And when I say, God, you're using this scripture, it's, why are you using this scripture? I want to be deep. I'm in a deep house with some deep people. They reading the Torah, they walking around and speaking in the Hebrew and the Greek. And he said, no. Like a child. I need them to be reminded today. Commune with me. Sit at my feet. Let me give you an understanding. Because if you don't get the basics, you're going to get that Hebrew, that Greek, and all the rest of it, and it's going to weigh you down. And you're going to try to hold up something you can't. You got to be ready for what he's going to give you. He's not going to kill you. That's not his desire. That's the devil's desire, to weigh you down. So in this young boy who hadn't been spoken to yet gets a fine-tuning of the ear. He went to the familiar. How many go back to the familiar when it doesn't seem right? How many go back to the familiar? The familiar can't save you. The familiar can't get you to glory. So on that fourth time, he said, your servant is listening. Can that be your confession today? And not a confession only out of here that you leave and you walk away from, but from your heart. Speak. Your servant is listening. Speak. Your servant is listening. So he's drawing you closer because he desires to be close to you. He desires to give you understanding for the day and the time that we're in. And youth, this is for you too. You all are dealing with things that a lot of us haven't dealt with. And when we were confronted with it in the season that we're in, maybe because we see you all going through something, or maybe one of our loved ones, we're like, how can they carry that thing? But he's trying to fine-tune your ears in your youth. If he can fine-tune your ears in your youth, like he did Samuel's, do you know the damage you can have on Satan's kingdom? We are pulling him down in here. We're saying, Lord, come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. And if you can hear me, it will be done. It will be done. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate God. God is deep, and we won't ever be as deep as him. And half of us, when we meet him, if we get an opportunity to really talk to him, we're going to lean in, because we're going to say, what was this? And we may or may not get the opportunity to really do that. But God is telling us to do this. Listen. Those of us who have children, say listen. At a certain age, you expect them to listen. You have 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that can't listen. And I'm not talking about to you and to me. I'm talking about the ones who have been in the faith, that we're supposed to be trusting and walking like, that aren't listening to the voice of God. That's why we have to damage ignorance. And we have to get to a place of a child where we can be open to be ministered to, where we can not overcomplicate it. And point number 4, as we do this, he will commune with you. He will sit down with you. He wants that so bad, where he can come into you, where he can sit with you, where he can sup with you, where he can tell you the desires of his heart for your life. See, a lot of us don't even think that we're worthy of that, or that that can be done, or we believe it for other people. Will you believe it for yourself today? As we come to the conclusion of a beautiful feast, of a glorious time of rejoicing and worshiping, of sitting in remembrance of what he's done, but not for also forgetting what he is to do. These feasts were set up for a purpose. For a purpose. And he wants to leave no one behind. His desire is for us all to be there. His desire is for when that trumpet sounds, we move. Not in shock or disbelief, but in anticipation. In anticipation. What are you expecting from him as you get your ears in tune to his voice? What do you desire? What are the desires of your heart today? What are they? Are they to sit at his feet? Are they to just lay with him and hear his voice? This morning, I had to go and do some things. I had to walk out the course. I had to walk it out. But as I was walking, I was telling God, all in. All in. All in. And all in for me meant, God, I'm diving in. I'm jumping in head first, feet first. I'm going in. For many years I had said, Lord, I hear you and I'm following you. And I'm doing what's right by you. But he showed me one time sitting right over there, he showed me a big bull. And he said, that's you. You're stubborn. You're stubborn. You're tough. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, no, I'm not. Then during this feast, I said, Lord, show me myself. He said, you're mean. I said, me? How could you say that about me? But then he began to show me myself. When you're all in, you're willing to see yourself. When you're all in, you can commune. When you're all in, he can fine-tune your ear. When you're all in, these feasts mean something different to you. When you're all in, each day will be different. When you're all in, souls will be saved. When you're all in, wells run. Waters are turned to Elam. Bitter waters become sweet. Oh my gosh, he dealt with me with water. And I kept saying water and powerful water. And he says, I'm washing it away. I'm cleaning it up. I'm flowing like never before. Are you open for the flow of his spirit? From something as simple as speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. Change happens. Something as simple as speak. Lord, your servant is listening. Someone's life is saved. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. Cancer dries up. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. The paralyzed man walks. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. You see relatives walk through that door with upheld hands. Because when you say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening, your heart is willing at this time, this year, right now. The world will never be the same. But where does change start? Where does it start? With you. With your confession. Because God desires it all for you. Like I said, he desires to give you an understanding. And he desires to commune with you. And as he communes with you, he said, what do you say? Don't overcomplicate it. Don't wrap yourself up and turn around in circles and hop on one foot. Y'all may think that's crazy, but there's someone who believes they have to do all of that. There's someone who believes they have to sacrifice a child to atone for their sins. There's someone who believes that they won't make it in because of something they did that God would forgive them for if they just asked. So today, keep that confession on your heart and on your lips and on your mind. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. Because we want change. Who wants to keep living the same life? We have desires on our hearts. Some of us desire marriage. Some of us desire to open businesses. Some of us desire to have children. But if he tells you how to do it, who to do it with, who to link up with, where to go, where to park. See, it's those little things. He might say, park back here. You're like, Lord, but his parking space is right up front. Park right here. Because guess what? My Tesla may not want to be scratched, and I got a word for you in my mouth. Do you get what I'm saying? Stop questioning just those things. Why do I need to go on the fruit aisle? I don't need anything over there. If he says go, walk it. Walk it out. Who you going to meet on there? Who you going to meet? Your child might need a scholarship, and there's someone over there who's saying, You have a child? Are they at college age? They're getting ready to graduate? See, it's those things. God has told me to walk this way. I don't want to walk that way. I find money. He'll say this to this person. To that person, they'll come to me and say, I didn't want to be here anymore. But you reminded me that God knows me. Little things that we may say we don't want to do, but that comes with the fine-tuning of your ear. It comes with the fine-tuning. And like I said, what better time are we in than to be so close to him, to hear him in everything we do? It's so calm and peaceful in here. No one's jumping. But that's how he is. He's calm. He's peaceful. And that's how he wants his relationship with you. Even in the midst of the storm. Because what is it? It's three things with the storm. You're either in one, going into one, or coming out of one. I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are. But I know you're in one of those three places. And no matter if the tides are high or if they're low, it shouldn't change your ear. It should not distract you. And when it does, get back to that quiet place with him and sit there with him. Just sit there with him. Luke 6:46 and 49. So why do you keep calling me, Lord, Lord, when you don't do what I say? I will show you what it's like when someone comes to me listen to my teaching and then follow it. It is like a person building a house and digging deep and lays the foundation on solid rock. When the flood waters rise up and break against their house and stands firm, it stands firm because it is well built. But anyone who hears and does not obey is like a person who builds a house right on the ground without a foundation. When the floods sweep down against the house, it will collapse. As I draw to a close, what are you building on? Are you building on his voice? Are you building on your idols? What are you building on? Give yourself something to think about. We go through, as the storms come, what is your house built on? Is it built on the solid rock of Jesus? Have you dug deep? Have you dug deep? Because if we dig deep, we hear him. Or when we need to dig deep, we will hear him. He'll tell you where to dig, when to dig, how to dig, if you're submitted to him. God knows where you are. He knows who you are. He knows each one of you by name. And what he desires for you today is that you say, Lord, speak. Your servant is listening. May the Lord bless you all and keep you and speak to each one of you where you are. In Jesus' name.
Hearing, our ability to hear. I'm confident that he wants us all to know how to hear his voice because he says, my sheep know my voice. I won't even focus on the stranger part today. I just want you to think about what he said. My sheep know my voice. Now, obviously, there are times which you have to learn if you've never heard it, but if you were paying attention to the text, it's funny how God chose to use his speak, but what Samuel kept initially hearing was Eli's voice, which was why he kept saying, did you call me? So no, there wasn't any trembling like you see in the book of Exodus. You don't necessarily it's not written as if he heard a trumpet, but yet it was still the voice of the Lord. Minister Locker shared with us that, yes, sometimes God does speak to us in a still, small, quiet voice. But I'm going to go a step further and tell you that a lot of times, it's very peaceful, but what you hear is God's thoughts, but it's your voice. Can we start there for people who often say, I don't know what God sounds like? Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Let me help you. It's typically God's thoughts, but your voice. And in most cases, God is not yelling and screaming. It ain't going to be, no, don't do that. As Minister was sharing, he's a gentleman. He's going to say what he has to say, and he's going to keep on moving. The question is, are we going to listen? I really think that God spoke to the entire house on today. And I don't want to close out service without giving you, if you desire that, an opportunity to have someone pray for you and pray with you.